New Yorkers showed their support for the state park system last year after budget cuts threatened to close down some parks and historic sites. The parks ended up staying open, however, and seeing an increase in visitors. But their funding has not gone up. And now the country's oldest park system needs more than $1 billion worth of repairs and upgrades. Here with me to explain more is Eric Kulisade. Eric is the executive director of the the Alliance for New York State Parks, which tries to find private funding for the park system. Eric, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
So let's talk a little bit about, actually go back a few months.
Okay.
You guys, your group, released a report talking about the need for infrastructure repairs at nearly every single state park and facility that we've got in this state. Has much changed since then?
No, and I should say that that report was a public report. It was based on information made available by the agency, and in the time since then, there's a new administration, and Governor Cuomo's really appointed a terrific new Parks Commissioner, and she's really Rose Harvey, I'm sorry, who's making every effort to make do with limited resources. She's prioritizing the list, but the fact is that there is still over $1 billion in capital projects, and we're talking about projects that are really health and safety and basic rehabilitation. It's electrical systems, it's plumbing systems, it's water systems. It's really the kinds of things that are critical to a safe and healthy visitor experience, and it's been hard to address with the state's limited finances right now. So,
has the Cuomo administration done enough, though? I mean, what are they doing, in your view, to keep the parks open and keep them up to snuff?
Well, I think from starters, we're obviously incredibly happy that the Cuomo administration has decided to keep the park system open. We didn't have anything, as you referred to earlier. This year we didn't have to deal with a potential park closure crisis, and that I give Governor Cuomo enormous credit for. And he is also, I think, doing tremendous things to reach out to public-private partnerships, to the Alliance and to other groups about helping them address some of these concerns. So I think he is doing what they can. I think with the state is doing what it can with limited resources. But it is also true that we need to bring in private sector fundraising, and the Alliance is not just about private sector fundraising. We're also interested in seeing if we can't raise public dollars as well, find some new public funding sources to help address this from the public side.
What needs to be done at some of these parks? Can you give us any specific examples of projects that need?
I think it's such a range. At Bear Mountain there are. The electrical system, the electrical supply grid at Bear Mountain is 50 years old and can't really carry the capacity of what they need down there. There are pools that are closed right now because of creaking systems. Here in the Capital District, People's Island has got a sort of a historic ruin that is in danger of collapsing. It's a range of things around the state. Mills Mansion in the Hudson Valley. There's, as the Gannett article pointed out, there's drainage issues in the boat basin, and the historic mansion there needs just to have its facade maintained so it doesn't just collapse. It's really a lot of sort of big ticket items. They're not small items. But they're essential to maintaining those parks.
Right, you referenced a story that the Gannett newspaper chain put out. I should say that I'm a former employee of Gannett, just full disclosure, but they did put out a story over the weekend discussing the need for these infrastructure improvements, and they also talked a little bit about the need for some private sector investment. Where are these sources of money coming from? You guys have conducted a campaign called Pennies for Parks. How's that project going, and what private sector sources are you seeing this money come from?
And let me differentiate, because Pennies for Parks really is truly a public sector funding initiative, but I'll go into both if you don't mind. So from the private sector, I think we take our cue from what's happened in New York City in the last 30 years, and others actually in Buffalo as well. Some of our state cities have got extraordinary private sector organizations that are raising private dollars to help public parks, and that's true at Central Park, it's true at Bryant Park, but even Buffalo's Delaware parks, the Olmsted parks, there are now three of every $4 out there comes from the private sector, from private sector contributions from foundations and individuals who care about maintaining parks. Pennies for Parks is a concept that we've introduced where we propose that a charge be put on the disposable bags that are distributed by grocery stores and other retailers in the state. The ones that you get at the point of checkout, they're way common, that are filling up our landfills and floating around in our trees and getting stuck in the Pacific Ocean, with these big whirls of floating trash. The idea would be to put a modest charge on those, and dedicate that charge to the state park system, to addressing the capital projects backlog. It's pretty exciting. It is avoidable. It encourages, it has the double benefits of helping state parks on the one hand, but then also reducing the stream of plastic and other disposable bags to our landfills, which we certainly know in the Capital District are really very stressed out. You look at the city of Albany and its landfill that they had to keep open, and they're struggling to keep open as it reaches capacity.
And how much money has been raised, or how much money has this meant so far? If
you look at bag use in the state, from a sort of it's estimated that each penny would generate about $60 million a year. So if you put a 1 penny charge on, it's estimated to create $60 million a year. And that's really just from plastic. We've only really looked at plastic. If you add paper, which does make sense to look at as well, that's obviously less prominent in terms of customer use, but it'd be some incremental value. As much as a nickel. Washington, D.C. is a nickel. In New York, a nickel could generate somewhere over $300 million.
And I think this was asked at the time, but wouldn't this mean, a lot of opposition, say, from convenience store groups or from other grocery store groups who would probably be opposed to, even if it is just a penny tax? Wouldn't there be some opposition to something like this?
You have to be sensitive to all that. I mean, I think we've done some polling. We did polling in December that showed that 3 out of 4 New Yorkers would support a penny a bag charge. Again, you have to remember this is avoidable. People bring their own bags; they don't pay anything.
Well, then you're not raising any money, though.
You're not raising as much as you. No, I realize I'm in sort of a ground here where I don't want people to stop using plastic bags altogether. That's for sure. But then but you asked about the store owners, and there are certainly concerns there. But on the same time, they benefit, because it's fewer. They don't charge for the plastic bags now. If they can drive down the use of plastic bags, it's less cost to them to buy the plastic or disposable bags. And then right now under New York State law, they're required to take it back as recycling. And so if they could reduce that stream, we would argue that it's actually a benefit to the retail industry as well.
Okay, there's been a lot of talk recently in the last weeks or so of Governor Andrew Cuomo rolling out these economic development councils. What's the economic development argument for keeping parks fully funded? Is there a benefit to job creation? Is there necessarily if these parks are funded, jobs will come?
I think it's a couple things. It's particularly upstate, right, where a lot of these parks are signature regional destinations, right? Niagara Falls, Letchworth Park, the Gorge Parks around Ithaca. If we can do things to help drive more people to those parks, that's going to benefit the state.